I'll begin by, as I said, when we were in Australia, we always begin any meeting by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land. And we're meeting tonight from my house, which is on the land of the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. And we start with acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and paying respect to their elders, past and present. And some people pay their respects to their future leaders as well, in order for us to be grounded in who we are as Australians, where we're situated in history, to come to terms and to think about the injustices of the past and what we need to do for justice into the future. So let me go back. The purpose for which we're meeting tonight is to discuss the work of Women Wage Peace. And to do that, we have three incredible women with us. And I suppose I should also say that two of those women are associated with the Kivitstein Institute, and they may or may not want to say something about the Kivitstein Institute, beyond the fact that it's a feminist Hamutal or not-for-profit organisation based in Israel. Sorry, I'm going to go on mute and hand over. Peter, you'll have to introduce yourself because otherwise we'll have the computer in the background.
Okay, I do know, I think everybody in the call, or most people in the call, Peter Jones Pellach, and I live in Jerusalem, and I'm so honoured and pleased to live in this wonderful city, and a member of Women Wage Peace for already 4 or 5 years, maybe even yes. And I wanted to call people together to spread the word about this amazing organization. Women Wage Peace happens to be the largest grassroots organization in Israel. And one of the reasons that it's successful in drawing in women is that it is not aligned to any political party, although I would say it's highly political, but not party political. What do I mean by highly political? Well, we can go into all sorts of debates about the meaning of political. And of course, one of the most beautiful sayings that I actually heard at one of my first introductions to Women Wage Peace is that the personal is political. We have, and Melinda said this with regards to the Australian approach to acknowledging the traditional owners of the land. We have purpose, we have intention, we have an agenda. And what is the agenda of Women Wage Peace? It is simply that Israel cannot go on indefinitely without a peace agreement with all our neighbours. Now, Women Wage Peace is not party political in that we do not define what that agreement needs to look like in terms of we don't have a directive to the political powers as to what the peace treaty should look like, but simply there must be a political or diplomatic peace, accommodation and agreement for our children, for our children's children, for the sake of our sanity and for the sake of changing the landscape in which we live. I want to tell you a couple of things about Women Wage Peace, just so that you know a little bit more about it. It was launched in actually November 2014, and I wasn't part of this first movement, which was a ride to Sderot with 1,000 women. Why Sderot? Sderot epitomizes the ridiculous situation in which we allow ourselves to live, by which people on, in this case it's Gaza, but people in the Gaza Strip and people in Sderot, ordinary people are unable to get on with their normal lives. People are in a situation constantly of conflict, and all they want to do on both sides, in Gaza and in Sderot, all the majority of people want to do is to be able to live normal and non-traumatic lives. And so this first peace train, if you like, was to show solidarity with those requiring or wanting normalcy. The next thing was during the summer of 2015, after a year after Operation Protective Edge, we set up a tent outside the Prime Minister's residence. And this is where I first heard about Women Wage Peace. Where do we hear about most things that are important to us? From friends. one of my friends participated in the 50-day fast where, and not everybody fasted for 50 days, but rather people took turns fasting. So there was a 50-day fast. And one of my friends who was hoping to join us this morning, but I don't see her here now, was one of the original participants. And she told me about this movement. And I said, it's me. It's something I want to be part of. I'll tell you a little bit more about that when my time comes. But then the movement during 2016 held this March of Hope, and Melinda and I both participated in the March of Hope. It was we went on the last day, which was the gathering day, but there were 2 weeks of marches of women. And as all of this was going on, we were building our numbers, more and more women. And the women, as we're about to hear from both Warda and Hamutal, the women that joined Women Wage Peace, are from the cross-section of women living in Israel and Israeli women. And then after that incredible event, where we ended up outside Bibi's house, where now it's so well known, these protests outside Bibi's house on Balfour every Saturday night. But that gathering, first of all, it wasn't a Saturday night, but it was, there was a sense of joy, I would say, at that gathering, a sense of accomplishment, a sense of togetherness, and a sense of hope. Well, we're still hopeful. One of the things about Women Wage Peace is it's very hopeful. It's very, very optimistic that eventually something can and will be done. So then in 2000, I'm jumping a little bit because 2017 was the Journey to Peace, a 2-week journey through the country. 2018, the Mother's Tent opposite the Knesset, and then the Mother's Tent also was in Tel Aviv. And September the 20th, 2018, International Day of Peace. Again, I participated, very, very powerful and moving walk from Jaffa Gate just to Independence Park, and singing. And we've also had a number of events in 2020 celebrating a UN resolution, and the resolution 1325, which talks about the need for women to be engaged in peacemaking, amongst other things. Women Wages Peace main motto is, we need peace. Its second or equivalent motto is, and we need women to be involved in the peacemaking, because when women are involved, it's qualitatively different. It's not only about representation and the fact that 50% of the population are women and therefore women should be 50% represented. It's also about the extra value added that we can get from having women engaged. So I'm going to ask my colleagues and friends from Women Wage Peace to share their stories of why they're involved and what it means to them. And maybe I'll call on Hamutal Gouri first. Hamutal is my colleague as a senior fellow at the Kiverstein Institute. And one of the things that we've discovered is coming from different backgrounds, different motivations. We can share so many common goals and visions, and it's unity through diversity, if you like. So Hamutal, please, she's a much more prominent in Women Wage Peace, a real leader, even in a leaderless organization, or an organization that doesn't promote leadership. Hamutal nevertheless stands out as a leader. So over to you, Hamutal.
Thank you, Peta. Good evening, good morning. Thank you all for being here. This is so exciting, and I feel so truly blessed to have Peta and Melinda and Shoshi and Warda and Danielle as my partners in crime, as we call it, in good crimes, peacemaking, and making connections. So I think I was a peace activist since I turned 15 or 16. And I've been a peace activist my entire life. And I became a member of Women Wage Peace in the summer of 2014. Shortly after the end of Protective Edge, we came together, a group of maybe 20, 25 women, Jewish and Arab, and we said, enough, enough. Our voices as women of diverse communities must be heard if we want to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And as Peter said, to ensure that we and our families and our communities and our children and our grandchildren will have a life of prosperity and peace. It is as simple as that and as complicated as that. Now it's interesting, Peter, that you said it's a leaderless organization. It's true in the sense that Women Wage Peace is a very flat, non-hierarchical movement. But one of the things I love so much about Women Wage Peace is that it serves as a platform for women to discover their agency, their activism, and their leadership. In that sense, it's not that it's a leaderless organization, it's an organization with hundreds of leaders, true leaders, because leadership is not about a position. It is about an act of empowering others to make their voices heard, to practice their agency. And this is one of the things that I find so precious and so beautiful about Women Wage Peace. Now, I want to tell you maybe two short stories from my years at Women Wage Peace. The first one from the protective fast, the 50-day vigil near the Prime Minister's home, where we fasted not for 50 days, but for 24 or 48 hours, sitting there, and just by sitting there, inviting people to come in and be in conversation. And because this is Jerusalem, so the most diverse, all people from all different backgrounds, communities, and political affiliations go by. And there was a group of young men. And at first, they really did not like the fact that we were there. They did not like what we represented. And we just said, come on in the shade. It was high summer, something to drink. Let's talk. Not think we changed their mind. But I think that the fact that we were in conversation, which is something so precious and sadly doesn't happen often enough within our political discourse. The fact that we sat there and we were in conversation and we couldn't agree on maybe 50%, but we could agree on the fact that we all want the same thing for ourselves and for our families, was something very precious. The second very powerful memory that I have is from the March of Hope. We marched in a place called Kasser El Yahud, which is a baptism site holy to both all three religions. And we were coming from the parking and buses with Palestinian women from the Palestinian Authority were getting off the buses. Now, these were women I have never met in my life before. And we just stood there and we started hugging and embracing each other and crying to this day. This was 5 years ago. Every time I tell the story, I get teary-eyed because we started hugging women whose names we didn't know. But it was that sense of what Jonathan Lear called radical hope. What is radical hope? It is hope in the face of a reality that doesn't look very hopeful. It is the ability to imagine a future that is very different from the present we're living in. And this was a day I will remember, and my children and my grandchildren will hear about it, because since then, every single time when we stand outside with our, with our signs and with our white shirts and our turquoise scarves, and people tell us, who do you want to make peace with? There are no partners for peace. I tell them, oh, yes, there are. And I personally hugged, I think, every single one of the 2,500 Palestinian women who were there and want the very same thing that I do. So I think I'll stop here because I want you all to hear from Warda, a dear and amazing friend and a member of Women Wage Peace. And she is one of the reasons I am so hopeful.
Thank you so much, Hamutal. I'm from Australia, and Women Wage Peace, that March of Hope, changed my life too, because it was the day that I committed to doing a lot of things in Israel that I otherwise wouldn't have committed to do. So in a way, that was the day the Kivastin Institute was born. That march was incredibly important to me, to meet all these other like-minded women from around the world. Dr. Warda Sada, so pleased that you are here tonight to join us. Warda's an academic. She describes herself as a Palestinian-Israeli peace activist. She was born in the Galilee, in a village there, and I hope she's going to tell us more about her life as well, pre-women wage peace and post-women wage peace. And she's been living in Jerusalem ever since, or at least since the time of her graduation from the Hebrew University. So thank you so much, Warda, for coming. And please tell us a little bit more about yourself as well, because some of the rest of us know each other very well, and we don't know you that well at all. But of course, you're our sister. And that's all that counts.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I think Hamutal and Peta, sorry, spoke everything I thought it brought me to Women Wage Peace. I came from the Galilee, as you said, and I'm a mother for three young children, 18, 21, 24. I was always activist in many organizations for seeking peace, how to say that, alternatives, working on programs and suggesting programs. So what can be what could be the better program for making peace between Palestinians and Israel? I live in Israel. I'm Palestinian in my nationality and Israel, because I got the culture of the Palestinian, and I'm so involved in the culture of Israel. I have a lot of colleagues, Jewish colleagues, all the time. I work in most of the time, I can say, work in a mixed organization which has a Jewish woman and Arab woman, and some of them we didn't talk about our our problems or our anxious about peace or something. Only when there was a war in Gaza, I wrote an email for 100 colleagues, and I wrote to them, I'm writing this while I'm crying because I can't see my students go and in this, because every Israeli soldier can be later also in the army when there is war, and so I can't see my student go and make war for my people, or for war is bad for everyone, even the person who make this war, who obey the rules or obey the orders. He sometimes do something that he is not so satisfied or not convinced. So it was like this, and sometimes we have less talks or more talks, but it's not so that give me the empowerment to go to this field in a way that I am in Women Wage Peace. I started with Women Wage Peace when I saw on the TV the march. That's Peta speaking about it, Peta speaking about it, sorry. And I saw 3,000 women seeking for a peace, and then there was other women seeking the end of the war, for example, for women, or I saw a lot of movement or some movements speaking about that. But I stayed a little bit on the side because I said I want to see if it's really a woman wage peace or not. So I saw that it's not only bring the kids home or are just looking for peace. They are looking for real peace. I started to follow this movement and saw how it's beginning bigger and bigger and wider, and hear what the goals are. And you know, it's not because just because of their children they seeking for peace. It's not because their society. They seeking peace also for my children, for my society, for my people. And you know, when you see that that they think in the same sorry, in the same time, looking at you and looking at their own life, uh, it's like you are the same, and we have the same thoughts, we have the same answers, we have the same problems. And I thought if there is about 50 women that they are wives, they are mothers, they are grandmothers, they are sisters for men who are also taking control in this life, and they are seeing their women making these steps. So I think it is I have to be there and also affect my society's men. And I started to be very, very active in this movement. I'm not a lot of time in this movement, but since I was there, I was very active. I saw myself in every event and in every place and in every act that seeking for alternatives for war, seeking for so we also as a movement suggest a role of alternatives that Peta speaking about it, and also seeking about empowering women. As Hamutal said, leadership is not about only to be in a position. So every one of us is a leader in her community, in her society, in her even in her own family. In her own family, I brought my children to the marches of Women Wage Peace. My daughter, for example, changed her goals, studying goals from medicine as her father to be to study political science and international law. So you know, if I make this change for I didn't make that by purpose. By the way, she changed. Her father wasn't so pleased for that, but I saw there is a lot of there could be a lot of medicine physicians, but my daughter has the personality to be also a leader in her you know, community. So she brought her girlfriends also to Women Wage Peace events. So for me, as Hamutal said, every woman in Women Wage Peace is a leader, really a leader. I don't care if it's a small place or a big place, a small little people that she affect them, or much people, because it is like a serious. Everyone can after that affect everyone. So for me, Women Wage Peace also a home for hearing from the right wing to the left wing. I couldn't. I told you in a college. I taught about 26 years in a college that has these wings, for example. But as I saw, we didn't talk about these. In Women Wage Peace, they give me, you know, the empowerment to speak about how I feel as a Palestinian, as an Israeli, and how can we make this discussion, talking about our and accepting others, accepting other people speaking about their narratives, because everyone has his own narrative, and if we make compromise after we hearing these narratives, we can make a lot of things forward to peace. So it's really a movement that give me a how to say that the tikva, the hope to be more and more people in this movement, and to encourage everyone, not only from the left, as I thought that only the left are with us. It's also there is some people on the right that we don't hear in the media. We don't hear in the media. So for me, Women Wage Peace is a home, is a family, is the empowerment colleagues that even when I'm sad, I can find at least 10 women, even it's not about politics. I can find 10 women speaking about my sadness, about my problems, even my personal problems. So it gives us really empowerment for every woman in the, especially in this society, which is very, very, some I can say that it makes all the wars makes the society sometimes aggressive. So Women Page Peace is the peaceful, peaceful thing that make us feel good. And also, the empowerment to be part of a party, a new party that has 50% women. Now it's a new, and I'm also a candidate for the Knesset in the 4th place in this party. It's a new one. It's called Democratic, but it's not the issue now. But really, because I felt that I can be with Jewish people, a 50% woman, and I can make a change. So this is my story in Women Pitch Peace.
Thank you so much, Warda.
Thank
I
you.
it's so nice when you find places where there are other women, places where there are like-minded women. And that's one of the things that Hamutal mentioned. She discovered at that meeting, although she knew so many times before, but there were 25,000 Palestinian like-minded women at that one meeting.
Exactly.
Here we are, just a handful of us, but we're like-minded women and some men who are sharing these important values about how we can move forward. And I should tell you, Warda, that my children didn't study political science per se, but 2 of them are actually on this call. So I'm pretty proud mother that my children are concerned about these issues as well.
Yes.
And I'll hand you over to Peter. Peter, we didn't say very much about Hamutal, other than being a senior fellow at the Kivestin Institute. Hamutal is also the founding director of Impact Storytelling, and she does consulting and training and storytelling for social change. And she is pretty amazing. So if you ever want to meet someone to storytell and help you work out through your stories and through your own life and through what's happened to you, how you can bring about change, Hamutal's your man. I always have to say that because it's a Leonard Cohen song. So those of you who know me, it's not as sexist as it would otherwise be. It's just Leonard Cohen-esque. And Peter, on the other hand, is also a teacher. So it's interesting that so many people are teachers, and she's another one of these amazing women. Israel is full of amazing people, amazing women. How many amazing women are there that Women Wage Peace is? Every time you go to a Women Wage Peace meeting, you meet more amazing women. It's amazing that there are so many amazing women, and Peter is another one of them. So Peter, tell us your story.
Thanks, Lindy. I need to say that I came to Women Wage Peace from my deep commitment to peace, which is for me religious. And it makes me a minority in Women Wage Peace, and it also makes me a bit of an anomaly in the religious world in Israel, which tends to be politically aligned with the right. But it's not because religious women don't want peace. It's because the understanding of peace amongst many of the religious women is very different from a secular understanding of peace. And I straddle both camps, and it is deeply ingrained in me that this is not a contradiction, but rather it's something that needs to be harmonized. And I see myself as potentially a bridge builder between religious and secular peacemakers. Lindy, when you started out with the acknowledgement of the original owners of the land, as a religious woman, I identify very deeply with many of the, and my experience in interfaith dialogue in Australia taught me this, with many of the Indigenous owners of the land. We Europeans use the term owners, but the Indigenous people don't see themselves as owners of the land. The land owns them, if you like. We belong to the land. I see both Palestinian and Israeli women who feel the same way. It's a very deep religious commitment that the land is not something we can own. And therefore, because it's not something we can own, it's also not something that we can divide successfully. And many religious women are scared of an organization like Women Wage Peace because they think that it's going to be about drawing lines on a map and therefore giving legitimacy to division of the land. And my view is that finding lines on a map is not defining who owns the land. It is a necessary temporary way of living side by side with people in a reality where we have to work out ways of living side by side. But I don't see it as a contradiction to my view that in fact all the land is divinely owned. And we are guests on this land, guests of the divine, which is very similar to the Indigenous Australians' view about the land, that we are guests on this land. And because we are guests on this land, my motivation is, as guests, we need to find the most peaceful way of being here. The best way of fulfilling the divine will, in my view, is by finding the best way of living with the other people who are on this land and with ourselves as well, within our society. So I'm deeply driven by a religious commitment to peace. And that's when I joined Women Wage Peace, I saw that it welcomed the diversity of women, including those who share my view, but we are still a minority. And I see it, as I said, as a target or a challenge for me. And I stand corrected by both Hamutal and Warda. Yes, Women Wage Peace is full of leaders, but many of us are still struggling to find out how we can activate our leadership to make Women Wage Peace even stronger and even more diverse and even more effective. And indeed, that's one of the reasons that we're here today, because although I did not hide the fact that Women Wage Peace is today and tomorrow engaged in its first ever, we're calling it like crowdsourcing fundraising, to try and give us a little bit of more support in the work we do, a little bit more opportunity to bus more women to events, to print or produce whatever materials we need, just to give us a little more support. We're doing this 2-day little campaign. And as Shoshi, are you able to share their film? So Shoshi's going to share a film with us, which will just give us a little bit more insight, and then I'll pick up again.
While Shoshi's putting that up, I'll just tell you that Shoshi has put into the chat the URL that you need to press if you'd like to donate money to Women Wage Peace through this link. It's available there. If you can, that would be great. If you can share it with other people, that would be great. Whatever you can do, of course, is completely open to you.
And again,
נשים, גברים, אתם מוזמנים ומוזמנות להצטרף אלינו. יש לכם הזדמנות לעשות משהו אחר.
ארגון נשים עושות שלום קיבל מעמד של ארגון יועץ באו"ם.
כי אנחנו יודעות לקבל החלטות.
הצעת חוק שנכתבה יחד עם ארגון מדהים שקוראים לו נשים עושות שלום.
that it was short, but I think it's very pretty and attractive. So what I wanted to say to you is that in this campaign, I'm hoping that in the next 24 hours, you will share this link that's in the chat and encourage your friends and colleagues to make a very, very, very small donation if that's all they want to make. But I took on, as a volunteer, as a member of Women Wage Peace, I said, I can raise 5,000 shekel, because if I can find 50 people who will give 100 shekel, which is really so little, then I can do it. But I haven't done it yet. I need you to help me. If each of you on this call found 2 people additional who would give 100 shekel, we're talking about, what is it, $40 million.
Sorry, Peter, are we talking about 30 Australian dollars or 25, 30 Australian dollars or 40 or 50 Australian dollars? What are we
about
talking
40 Australian dollars, and you can pay it over 10 months if you want. $4 a month would do the trick, whatever. In other words, it's really, I'm not asking anybody to make this their primary giving, but it's so perfect that this is Parashat Truma this week. It's the parasha that talks about how giving gives back. How if you give something, you know that you're actually, we talk about the parasha opens with take rather than give. The verb that's used is take. What do you mean take? You benefit from the giving. How amazing it would be to be able to help your friends say they've contributed towards peace in Israel. And it will happen. I mean, I'm convinced that Women Wage Peace we know it's gathering momentum. We know more and more people are joining us all the time. And wouldn't it be amazing or won't it be amazing? I won't say wouldn't it. Won't it be amazing in a few years when you look back and say, yes, I contributed. I was part of it. I did something towards this achievement of peace. And I have to say to you that even in the interim, when we don't have yet the peace treaties or agreements that we want, the movement continues to change. Warda mentioned how it changed her daughter's life. I'm saying to you that it's also changing people's lives as we move forward. It's bringing to the front of the Israeli spectrum the fact that women need to be engaged. We are still there. These things, they take time, and it is a process, and we may not see the final outcome that we want in the immediate future, but we are seeing change. And to be part of that change is really, you get back more than you give. So I really think that it's something that we can help each other change the face of Israel and Israel's neighbors. But most importantly, even though Warda said it's not just, we're not doing it just for our own grandchildren, we're doing it for the grandchildren of the others as well. But for somebody like me, both Hamutal and Warda were born here. I chose to come here. I brought my children here, and that means my grandchildren are born here. All of my grandchildren are born in this place. I didn't bring them here out of the comparative safety of Australia. I didn't bring them here so that my grandsons would fight in the army. I brought them here with a view that we actually can create a better place. So I feel that I have to keep working at making it a better place, and how incredible it is to have partners. And when Hamutal spoke about physically hugging all those thousands of people, at the moment we're not doing much physical hugging, and yet I still go to Women Wage Peace. We still stand on corners with signs, and there's usually only very, very few of us. And I don't see many of those women between standing on the corner with a sign. Yet we are emotionally hugging each other when we do it. We have bonds and links, and it's very, very powerful and beautiful. So even supporting that support between women, even, as I say, in the interim until we get the peace treaty, supporting that bonding of women, putting women more on the front pages, it's worth doing. It's really worth doing.
Peter, I just realized something, because we're talking so much amongst sisters and friends. When you talk about you didn't bring your children so your grandchildren could be in the army, I actually have a son, those of you who know may know this, I have a son who lives in Israel, and he came to Israel after the time of the army. He was older and he came purposefully so he didn't have to go into the army. But he's now expecting his first child. And I certainly don't want my grandchild to go into the army. I don't want my grandchild who's sitting next to me in Australia, and I don't want my grandchild who's sitting on the other side of the world going in the army. I want him to have friends and to be proud to say that, you know, the grandchildren, just as my son has friends who are from a whole range of different backgrounds. The Palestinian kids are playing with his kids, that they are friends, that they understand and respect each other, and they share the land and they share this hope. And from Australia, if we can have hope, and if I can feel, even at the other side of the world from where Hamutal, Warda and Peta are sitting, I can feel this, the power of women wage peace, because that's what it is. It's brought us together. I hope that the rest of you will pass this on to the rest of your families and share it as well.
I want to thank Eliza for the story of the inspiration she's brought us from South African History Women's March. We in Women Wage Peace also draw our inspiration from other women around the world, the Irish women, the Irish mothers who brought peace, and particularly Liberian women who changed their country. We do see that we have both links with women and women's movements around the world, as well as a very unique challenge in our own place. So, you know, we do. So thank you so much, Eliza. And I also put my email into the, my Kivestein email into the chat there, because if anybody, for any reason, wants to donate and the link doesn't work, or if you want to donate in Australian dollars, the link doesn't offer you that, so we can offer perhaps an alternative to do that. So if you want to contact me or ask me any questions, this campaign only goes down tomorrow. Shoshi, yes.
For 2 seconds, if you go back to the Humanitix login, if you have donated that way, that is in Australian dollars, and that will move across as one chunk with everyone's name. So if you do want to use your Australian dollars and not worry about conversion rates, we can take care of that. That's on the Humanitix page. It's easy to donate. You just select your amount and that goes to Women Wage Peace.
Thank you so much, Josh. I actually, when I went onto that site this morning, it wasn't showing that for me. So you might want to check that option for you.
It's not, it's in the ticket options. So that, so it's one of the options for buying a ticket. So everyone can come in, but then the donation specifically had to be.
And it will still be open after this call ends, time-wise?
Yeah, it'll be open for the next 48 hours. I've left it.
Thank you so much. But as I say, more than anything else, I'd be so grateful if you'd share that where Shoshi put in the donate the cause match page. Just share it.
Peter, is this video going to be available for people to share as well? Because people might want to share this with their friends.
Sure, I'll give you the link. Oh, Shoshi's got the link.
What I'll do is I'll email everyone who I've got on my list with the email with the video and the links. By the way, Alex has just asked what the Kivestein Institute is. So if someone could add that, please.
Linda, you're going to answer?
Who wants to answer?
Well, I'll start and you can pick up. So the Kivestein Institute is a feminist initiative, and I'm actually going to turn my computer around so you can see my office, because that helps. These are Women Wage Peace signs, which say enough, no more decisions without women, Women Wage Peace, and then the Kivestein Institute. Our motto is proudly feminist, and we are here in Israel to support and strengthen the feminist arena in Jerusalem. Our focus is on Jerusalem because we believe that Jerusalem is very special. What happens in Jerusalem affects the whole world, and we can make a difference here. So Melinda started the Kivestein Institute 2 or 3 years ago now. Hamutal and I are our senior fellows. We have a wonderful group of women working with us on a number of projects, the first of which was to have more women elected into the local administrations in Jerusalem. But we are supporting another number of other initiatives as well. And we hope to make a small but significant difference.
I would just like to add to that, one of our interests is in Security Council Resolution 1325, which is a resolution about the involvement of women in peace, because as we've said, having women in the peace process is quite a different thing to shuffle paper, is quite a different thing than a movement that is dominated by men. And there's an important role for women in this. And we did earlier on have a function that was a combined function of National Council of Jewish Women of Australia, Itach Ma'aki, which is the Association of Women Lawyers in Israel, sorry, not in Jerusalem, and the National Council of Jewish Women of Australia. And the International Council of Jewish Women is now embarking hopefully on a project around 1325 that the Kivestein Institute will start playing a role in as well, with the idea of seeing the extent to which we can help 1325 have implementation in Israel. And so, but we are interested in all projects to do with women, and we've done other projects, for example, one that includes working with women in the Haredi community who were suffering from economic hardship as a result of divorce, and to give them a form of economic independence. Our objective is always to give people power to control their own lives, to empower other women. So that's us, Alex.
I might just add one more thing that we are doing right now, and that is that we have started this network of women of influence, women community builders in Jerusalem. And we are currently working with another fabulous organization called Ir Amim, which is a Jerusalem-based organization for women from West Jerusalem to learn about East Jerusalem. And a number of East Jerusalem women who are members of our network have joined the course, and so they are contributor participants, and it's very, very exciting. So learning about our city and learning about all the diverse people who live in the city and the differences in needs and the advantage and disadvantage that some of us have, so the inequities, and therefore thinking together how to tackle some of these. That's part of what Kivestein is about.
Can I just add quickly? First of all, you ladies really make my heart sing. I'm so constantly inspired by you. You said, Peta, something about learning. And I think that one of the things, again, that are so precious, I think, both in Women Wage Peace and the Kivestein Institute and that learning process that you spoke about is, and I remember we used to do these film screenings of the film about the Liberian women's peace movement. And I used to go around the country and facilitate, a screening and a discussion. And there was one evening we were doing a screening, and I woke up in the morning and I said to myself, something really crystallized in my mind, that emotions are a form of knowledge. And very often, women are excluded from conversations about peace and security because being emotional about conflict is not deemed as something serious. But the truth is that if there's something, about conflict and its ramifications and its dramatic implications on our lives, is that we should be emotional about it. And emotion is not contrary to other forms of knowledge. It is a form of knowledge. It is something that we understand. There's a beautiful novel by David Grossman. In Hebrew, it's called Baguf Ani Mevina. I understand with my body. And so I think this so nonviolent form of female resistance by creating knowledge about peace and security that comes from the perspectives and the experiences of both Jewish and Palestinian.
And Hamutal, that talking from the body and emotion is also about love. And I think that's really important, that emotion is not just about us coming to tears about things or being irrational about things. It's actually about the deep, deep connection that we feel to the land, to the to one another. And
Yes. Yes.
So I think that we are very close to our time, and although we will stay on after we've formally finished for a few seconds so people can say hello, but we want to actually formally close off the evening by doing two things. First of all, the first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to say to everybody that the Giverstein Institute, like Women Wage Peace, is all about bringing people together. And Women Wage Peace is the most amazing organization. It's a grassroots organization that has just swept people off their feet, because what could be more important? You know, here in Australia, we have to do things about justice, and that's really incredibly important. We don't have the sort of level of problems that are caused if you've got war. You know, how can you move on while there's war? War has got to end in Israel. Women have to do this business of waging peace because nobody else is doing it. So I'd like to first of all commend Women Wage Peace and the work that Peta and Hamutal and Warda are all doing, and thank them so much for speaking tonight and sharing their thoughts and feelings with us. And then I want to ask Shoshi, who is a person who's behind the scenes in so many of the things and a crucial part of our operations, if she would please take us to the final little bit of the program, which we can't go without because it happened when I was there, and you'll all see what I mean.
Yes, I have to say this possibly is the most loved video other than a Leonard Cohen one in my family's history. So bear with me one moment, and here we go.
And if you look just to the right, you might see Peter and myself, and I'm not sure where Hamutal was, but we are just off the screen to the right.
But if we don't say it again, thank you very much for coming. It has been an honor to be in the same space as everybody, and we hope very much that we all continue forward on this journey together towards a more inclusive, peaceful, thriving world.
Well, I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. The buffalo call is calling, hallelujah. שמעתי שדוד הנים אקורד פלאים לאלוהים, ושאתה שונא תווים ידוע. אקורד עגום מסתורי, מינו נופל מז'ור ממריא,